When people talk, listen, man, I'm going to raise that red flag.
This narrative, especially after 1 year.
1 year.
One bad year. It's one big splash move. And because I don't think people understand how much cap space we can create.
Alex, I want to ask you, because you're a very humble person.
And I'm never going to be right about anything.
Yeah.
I was right.
Ricky. Just kidding, Ricky's not here. I just didn't know how else to start this, so I just did what I usually did when I did it with Ricky. So, hey guys, I'm back. I just been itching to get back on camera and doing some of this, and kind of just mad that nobody's saying what I say. So I'm just gonna say it on camera so that I can, instead of like, you know, if you guys follow me on Twitter, you know what I do. I will send out a tweet, and then it'll get manipulated into me saying something about one of the players, or bashing on a coach, or saying that something's going to happen, instead of just being like, guys, this is weird. Like, keep an eye out. This doesn't happen very often. So I thought that I would just get on and start doing this again because I kind of miss it, and that's about it. Okay, I'm just gonna jump right in because you don't really care about any of that. So this podcast is not going to be about, let's go over, you know, what happened in the game, and there's a lot of other podcasts that are way better than me at doing that kind of stuff. I'm going to miss some, but I love listening to Panthers on Tap, Dunk, One Carolina with John, Keep Purring, Two Growls, One Roar. There's a ton, and I feel bad that I even said any of them, because if you're watching and I didn't say you, then I feel bad. But there's a lot. Just get on Twitter, ask people. I'm not really the guy that can like break down quarterback play and offensive line play and stuff like that. I mean, I can if you want, but it'd be way better listening to them. I just kind of talk about, you know, what's going on behind closed doors. Why are things happening? Why don't we get this information? So, of course, Canales said Bryce is our guy going forward, and Tepper kind of made that stamp of approval. Yeah, we got a quarterback. But I still just want to know what happened. It's just so weird. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in sports. Like, I couldn't imagine this happening ever. I mean, this is a coach in David Canales. He's the 30th highest paid coach in the league. He basically makes what his defensive coordinator makes. He didn't get any other head coaching interviews. He kind of just went from, you know, like quarterback coach to head coach in 2 years. And he decided week 3, being the first time head coach, that he was going to bench a number 1 overall pick that the Panthers spent a franchise receiver, number 1 overall pick, number 9 overall pick, seconds, basically one of the biggest trade hauls ever, once you kind of calculate that the second pick was the second first that we gave up was a number 1 overall pick. So it's a pretty big deal to make this guy work. And 2 games in, you decide to move on. Not just bench him. And not only did you bench him, you benched him after you said very confidently that Bryce is your guy and Bryce is the starter. And then 12 hours later, I don't buy it, because I think that they would be like, "Yo, let's have a conversation about it." Like, what do you mean? We brought you in here to help Bryce. So something happened. I don't know if it was always the plan to kind of move on. I don't know, and I don't want to speculate. I just want to kind of move through the theories of why. So we have a theory of he did it on purpose. He was always planning to put him back in. All right, he was always going to put him back in when, because Andy got to start the next week, and he beat the Raiders, and everybody thought it was a miraculous move because Andy looked great. And Andy lost, and then he lost, and then he lost, and then he lost. And at that point in time, we're 1-6, and you got a guy that just lost 4 games in a row. So we're gonna wait till 5 games. When is this? Like when were you gonna put him in for meaningful games? It doesn't make a ton of sense. Okay, so he's always gonna put it back in. We don't know when that would be because we didn't get a chance to see it. So you can just take his word for it. But that makes sense to me. Let's go to the next theory, right? Theory is Andy gives him the best chance to win, right? Well, you saw Bryce for 2 games, right? And we all saw, and everybody buys into this, right? So Bryce, in those 2 games, he throws for 161 yards in the first game, 161 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And they get destroyed by the Saints. So the next game, he throws for 84 yards, and that's the big one. Everybody was like, oh, wow, he only threw for 84 yards and 0 touchdowns and 1 interception. So we got 161 and 84 and 3 interceptions for the 2 times, right? Well, then I go to Andy, and I see what he did. And I said his last game, 93 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And Bryce got benched for 84 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And then before that, 136 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. So 136 and 93 and 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. And then Bryce, what did I say, 161 and 84 and 3 interceptions? And Andy had just lost 4 games in a row. So does he give you the best chance to win? You had a 5-game sample size on Andy. You see 2 games. And not to mention, Bryce gets 2 games with everybody playing their first game together for the first time. Bryce didn't play in preseason. So it's brand new offensive line, 2 new guards, right? And Corbett moves to center. And then you get a rookie and Xavier Legette, and you get a new X and Deontay Johnson. Like, that's all this new stuff throwing at this guy at one time because he didn't play preseason, which could have given you a chance to, look at him some more. We decide after 2 games. But, 4 games in a row, Andy losing and putting up pretty much the same numbers that Bryce did in those 2 games, but he still gives you the best chance to win. Why? At this point, you're pretty much out of it anyways. I mean, you're 1-6, and like Andy's 35 years old. So why not just this is a guy you spent so much on. And no, he's just a backup now. Those are just 2 people that people always say that happen. Like, I don't know. How? In what other world does that work? If I'm say I'm Wembanyama and Spurs and I've played 10 bad games, you're on the bench, dude. What? LeBron James, hey man, you only went 1 for 16 2 games in a row. Get to the bench. We're going with this 35-year-old dude. All right, so let's go with, I think, and in my mind, none of them really liked Bryce. So almost every new coach wants a new quarterback. Almost every new coach. They go down the list of everybody got hired. Callahan's moving off of Will Levis. Gerard Mayo got May. Raheem Morris went and got 2 new quarterbacks in Penix and Kirk Cousins. As soon as LaFleur came in, even though they hated Aaron Rodgers, they drafted Love. It looks like Dayball's staying in the Giants, and he's going to get his new guy. But Dermott got Josh Allen, Zach Taylor, gets Burrow. Stefanski was never sold on Baker. He moved on from Baker to Watson. The only ones that are pretty much, in my opinion, like guaranteed to stick with their coach would be Dak. If McCarthy stays, who knows? Tua with Mike McDaniel, and who knows if Mike McDaniel's going to keep his job? I don't know. Herbert and Harbaugh, but Harbaugh kind of pretty much came for Herbert. But that's about it, man. It doesn't happen very often where the new coach keeps the same quarterback. So that's one mark on where I think that they were just like, I just don't think like Bryce is my guy. And then I'm just starting to think about like historical data where I looking at like Dan Morgan, right? So Dan Morgan, since he let's just say since he was like not a scout, so since like 2014 when he got assistant director of player personnel, I think that was his title. I'm just looking at all the quarterbacks that he has brought in from the draft. He had Matt Corral, 6'2", 212, for the Bills, 6'2", 215. He brought in Darnold to the Panthers, 6'3", 225. Tavares Jackson backed up Russell Wilson, 6'2", 225. Austin Davis backed up Russell Wilson, 6'2", 221. Geno Smith backed up Russell Wilson, 6'3", 220. Matt Barkley on the Bills backed up Allen, 6'2", 234. Andy Dalton brought in 6'2", 220. And then Morgan played with a guy named Jake Delhomme, who was 6'2", 225. It makes a lot more sense to me than it doesn't make sense to me. But it's so unprecedented. Like, why do the Panthers do stuff like that? Why do they do stuff that no one else ever does? It's just so weird. But all that said, we're looking at it. If I make every mistake possible, if I make my company $1 million, no one cares. I made $1 million, so good for them. But the whole thing was so weird. So I just wanted to touch on it. I don't buy the. We're just gonna let him sit for a little bit because it's never happened in the history of the league to a second-year quarterback that early. Like it just doesn't happen. And if it does, if they do bench the guy second year, he's usually gone. Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett, Geno Smith, Jack Wilson, Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder. This is the strangest thing I've ever seen as far as the way they're handling a second-year quarterback, especially a number 1 overall pick. But all's well that ends well there, and I don't really even need to harp on it very much, except for the fact that why aren't we being told anything about anything? Like, David Tepper is a businessman, right? He understands making money. So when you create momentum for any business, that's when the stock price like shoots up, right? And you ride that momentum. So when Bryce, just say the third good game, and you could lie about this. Like, you don't have to. You can just lie. They lied at the beginning of the year, and they were like, "Yeah, Canales is really excited about Bryce, and he's going to put him in all these situations to dwell, and blah 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 blah." And you know what happened? People were buying Bryce Young jerseys. You know what people weren't doing the past 6 weeks? Buying Bryce Young jerseys. So buying season tickets. Like, now that people know that Bryce is the starter, you know what they're going to start doing? Ooh, Bryce is awesome. Bryce is playing amazing. I'm buying. See, I'm going to fill the stands. Like, who was the top selling jersey before we committed to Bryce? Hubbard, I guess. Robert Hunt. You got to get stars. You got to get excitement. I don't know. I'm kind of annoyed that we haven't been kept in a loop for a lot of this stuff, especially after 6 years of being bad. But we let him get away with it, so who cares? But my thought was that Bryce wasn't their guy until he made them understand who he was, and he is probably one of the greatest, as far as a small sample size, rags to riches kind of story. I mean, everybody calling him a bust so early, and then him doing what he has been doing is freaking amazing. Okay, so putting all that aside, because I don't want to talk about Bryce anymore because nobody knows, and that's what sucks, and nobody's ever going to know. It's just weird. It's weird. But all's well that ends well with that. So let's start talking about the defense because nobody's talking about it, and it's really, really, really annoying. So let's talk about the all-time worst points against defense ever. Granted, it's 17 games. I don't like to say that because it sounds like it's like a little asterisk. It's still really, really, really bad. Even in 16 games, I think it was top 9 worst of all time. So that's like thousands of rosters. So it was real bad. Yes, we have injuries. Yeah. I watched Mike Vrabel had 2 years in a row of the most injured team of all time. He was the most injured team of all time, and then broke his own record the next year with the Titans. And man, he got those guys playing excellent. I mean, excellent for what he had. I mean, they were like middle of the pack defense. And he ran the ball with Derrick Henry. He played good defense. And he still won games that way. It's so hard to be that bad. Like, it's hard. It's really, really hard to be. Like, you have to have guys that kind of just, it's not even just talent, like they don't try and not put in the right positions. And like at some point in time, you guys all look at each other and like, hey, we're about to be the worst at something ever. Like maybe we should just put everything we have into this, like layer a lot. Like I don't want to be part of a team that had the worst points against of all time. Not a lot of motivation. Canales seemed content with it. I mean, he's still calling plays. He's still focused solely on the offense. Evero is the 6th highest paid defensive coordinator in the league. He's paid about what David Canales is being paid. And it doesn't seem that David Canales has much say over anything on that side of the ball. So it kind of feels to me that they've made it very clear that it's like almost like a 2-person head coaching thing. Because if I'm a head coach and I see, if you've seen Remember the Titans and the defense is like scores, he's like, one more score, I'm taking over the defense. Like it kind of feels like that's how it should have been. Granted, Canales doesn't really have any experience at all on the defensive side, which is why this kind of feels like a co-head coaching thing. And I don't even know if he's allowed to do anything. I don't know if Tepper lets him talk to Evero about anything, because you would think that someone would be taking the rap for this because it's the worst ever. And it looks really kind of bad for Morgan when you say, hey, moved on from Chin playing well at Washington. Luvu didn't want to be here anymore. So he left, traded Burns away, traded Dante Jackson away. He's doing well. And then you bring in guys like Dane Jackson who can't get on the field. Fuller can't get on the field. I think he hit with Jewel. I think Jewel's good. I think Ashawn Robinson is good. But you brought all of your guys in, and they became the worst defense in football. Like, I can't believe that nobody's being a fall guy for this because it's so bad. But I looked at what happened when the Seahawks came in with Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll, they traded Darryl Tapp, who was pretty good D end then. They signed a linebacker, one-year contract, and they signed some O-linemen, which sounds really familiar. And they were the 8th worst defense for points allowed that year. The following year, they were 7th best. So with all of these guys, you got to give them time. I'm glad we didn't part ways with anybody, I think. But I don't know. But there's some guys that seem to be doing pretty well. Some drafted guys that show some promise. But it looks like a long rebuild, maybe. But the Seahawks did it too, and they got rid of all of their dudes, and they ended up drafting Thomas, KJ Wright, Chancellor, the Legion of Boom, basically. And it took them 3 years to do it for the most part. So we've seen it happen before, so I'm not getting too, and we see it happen with guys that are like, they were from that team. So we saw Canales was there and Morgan was there. So we've seen it with these guys before. So I'm going to give it some time, just like I gave Bryce some time. I just wish that there was a little bit more transparency. I'm tired of getting off the hook with being the stand-in, just saying, just kind of giving us nothing. We need to press them a little bit more because we as fans are the consumer, and we need some answers. And I want to buy a jersey. I used to buy a jersey every year, and now I have no idea who's going to be on the team. So I would love us to give contract extensions. I would love, would love us to bring in some medium-sized names, not even big names, medium-sized names, which I do think we're going to try to do next year. And I think Bryce is going to. I think people are going to want to come play with Bryce. I don't think that. I thought that even before last week, but I think he made some noise this past game because that was excellent. And we were not far from winning 8 games. I think Trimble had a very catchable touchdown against the Chiefs right after Sanders went down. Went through his hands. We went up on the Bucks in regulation, and of course they scored a field goal in 30-something seconds, 40-something seconds, I don't know. Also, can we talk about how did these people score kicking these long field goals against us? I feel like every time it's a game-winning or game-tying field goal against the Panthers, and it's 50-plus yards, it's 100% they're going to make it. It's unreal. Anyway, but in that game, we got the ball, we were driving, and Chuba fumbles, and he never fumbles, and we fumbled out a game away, so that's 2 games. And then, of course, the no catch against the Eagles. If he catches that, that's another win. So, we're 3 plays away from being 8-9. Overall, for the defense, I'm still going to give it time. I just wish they seemed as upset about how bad this defense was as I do, but they seem kind of just to be blowing it off. And maybe there's a big offseason coming. I've kind of predicted that for a while now. I see a lot of cap being able to be found. So we're talking about offseason, right? Everybody's talking about, we definitely need an edge, which we do. We definitely need an edge. And we definitely need a receiver. But I don't know if it's going to be that stud X that I thought it was going to be. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm looking over all these teams that Morgan has been a part of specifically. So I'm taking the Canales Bucks away. He inherited Mike Evans. Great. Perfect. It's awesome. But other than that, the kind of guys that he drafts are sort of one-trick ponies-ish. They're super big, strong, fast guys. and they run a really good deep route, and that's about it. So you're looking at when he was, of course, DK. DK was also always a project when he came. Of course, Excel. But then you start looking at guys like Terrace Marshall. He was like, I think he was like PFF #1 graded like go route receiver. But so the big strong go route guy, that go route receiver. And then there's always this like 5'10" guy that they have. So you got your Golden Tate, that they got you got Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett, you got Shi Smith drafted late, Pearl drafted late in Buffalo. You got Ray McLeod drafted late in Buffalo. They kind of always go after these like smaller dudes too, which is very intriguing to me. And I have to look at the draft a little bit more, but they rarely get those traditional X's. I don't know. I don't know. I could see, like, I know they got Stephon Diggs, so I could see getting some sort of like, I would say like maybe Garrett Wilson is sort of like a Diggs-ish receiver. I don't know. But I know a name that's been going out a lot is Tyreek Hill, and that kind of fits that little 5'10", gets open. We'll see. But just going over the draft in general. So I went over and looked at like Morgan since he's been, like a not a scout, like he's been like a in the room basically. I looked at the top 4 picks that he usually gets. 6 of them are offensive line. That's the most by 2. I mean, there's been 4 defensive tackles, 4 tight ends, and 4 running backs. If you count Chuba, because he was then we had 2/3 that year. So he was the 5th pick, but he was in the 4th round, so he would be 5. So, and we lost, probably lost Brooks for the year. So that wouldn't surprise me if we drafted a running back in the first 4 picks. But almost always they draft defensive tackle, offensive line, and running back, and they get defensive end and defensive backs in free agency. Or they draft defensive backs like Morgan's the king. It's like almost a guarantee that he's going to get a cornerback in the 5th round. Got one last year. You got Robinson the year before that. We didn't have one the year before that. Then he got Taylor in the 5th round. He got Neal in the 5th round with the Bills. And then Richard Sherman was a 5th round pick. Cam Chancellor was a 5th round pick. So he's used to find DBs in the later rounds. So for me, what it looks like, we're probably going to try to go Graham if we can get him. And then we'll go O-line, whatever that is. Or we'll go O-line first. And then they're probably just best player available. But I think that we're going to spend a lot of money in free agency, and I don't think people realize how much money we have in free agency. I'm going to make this clip right now. Okay. We have way more money than you think we have, Panthers fans, and we will be spending a lot of money in free agency. Cut this, Alex, because this is going to be the clip that you're going to share on Twitter in 6 months. I just got to remember that I have this because I probably won't. Whatever. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. Clarifying things for me. I like Bryce. I like Bryce a lot. Nothing I say is bad against Bryce. I get annoyed by Canales, but I like Canales, and I'm going to give him a chance. I get annoyed that he doesn't tell me anything. I get annoyed that he doesn't talk about Bryce at all. He never gives credit to Bryce. That's another thing I want to touch on, because I always try to look for reasons why, right? What was the biggest breakup with the Legion of Boom, with the locker room breakup? It was when Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll called the Russell Wilson pass instead of running it with Lynch. They've all said that. It's kind of like the nail in the coffin kind of thing. So what if Canales is getting ahead of it? And he's making it about the team. He tells everybody, he's like, great job getting half a sack. Okay. I don't know any other coach that does that, but he makes it a point to tell other people that aren't the quarterback, great job. And at first I thought that was because he just hated Bryce. And he might, I don't know. He might hate Bryce. None of us know. But he might be trying to get the locker room to understand it's about all of them and not just the quarterback, because it seemed like that was a mistake that happened in Seattle and something that he could learn from. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, I like Bryce. I like Canales. I like Evero. I kind of sort of like Morgan. I just need to see more. I'm kind of seeing where they're going. And my next video might be talking about, kind of using everything, all the data to see what they, to break down what the exact thing that I think they could do is. That's going to take a whole lot of work and time. But yeah, other than that, I like these guys. And nothing I say is against these guys. It's predicting based on historical data what could happen and why they're doing it. I just wish that we would get more information, because then I'd have more data to to be able to tell you things that probably will or could happen. But other than that, that's it for me. I really enjoyed the last little bit of the season. I think that we've hit our offensive line. We've hit our, especially Chuba. We'll see running back. Coker is a steal. I think he's going to be fantastic. And we'll see what happens with Sanders and the young guys. Wallace, Richardson, Smith Wade. We'll see. I mean, they've shown flashes, but we'll see. But overall, I give the second half of the season like a nice solid B minus. I don't know. I don't do this. I don't even know why I did it. Okay. See you next time. I don't know when that's going to be. It might be never. Who knows? But keep pounding.